Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I apologize for my sore throat. Perhaps it's a sign of the times. For the INSS to issue a strategic alert is a highly unusual and unlikely action to take. And we are very aware of the significance of this combination of words, strategic alert. We are doing this because Israel is facing a combination of severe threats to its national security, to its international standing, and to its economy. And at the same time, we are going through an unprecedented internal conflict because of the relentless pursuit of the so-called judicial reform, which magnifies these threats and affects our ability to tackle them. I don't want to go into the contents of the reform, enough has been said. What is clear is first that the reform entails far-reaching changes to our political and legal regime, which very many perceive as a serious threat to democracy. Second, the reform is being sped up without a real opportunity to reach broad agreement. And third, as a result, we are witnessing a tremendous outburst of popular protest that is growing week by week, and that is inevitably seeping into all aspects of life in Israel, including into the army, the IDF. In view of this crisis, we are raising the alarm today. We are issuing, for the first time ever, a strategic alert that reads as follows. Pursuing the legal reform has already intensified the security, geopolitical, and economic threats facing Israel. We warn that pushing it forward will affect the operational capabilities of the army and undermine our ability to face our enemies. I'm not the one saying that. Who says that are the senior officials of the IDF. Pursuing the legal reform will weaken the support of our friends, particularly of the USA. And it will weaken the economy and its flagship, the high-tech sector. The logical conclusion, the reform legislation must be suspended immediately, put on hold for the time being, so as to focus instead on the severe threats to Israel's national security and on the restoration of social cohesion and resilience. We shall soon commemorate the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the State of Israel, and later on we're going to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. This should be taken as a sobering reminder that the existence of the State of Israel should never again be jeopardized. This time, the warning is on the wall. Let me say a few words about the security threats. These have recently intensified along key fronts, even before the introduction of the judicial reform. First, Iran has become a de facto nuclear threshold state. It has acquired valuable military expertise from its role in the war in Ukraine, and is set to receive advanced weapons systems from Russia. Second, we are currently facing a worrying escalation on the Palestinian front and a wave of terror attacks, while Ramadan approaches and we need the potential for wider unrest, particularly around the Temple Mount. Third, Hezbollah in Lebanon has been exhibiting a more aggressive behavior, indicating that deterrence might be eroding. In these circumstances, we would have expected Israel to focus entirely on confronting these threats. But unfortunately, the internal rift is badly affecting our ability to do so. The most severe impact is on the IDF. and on the readiness to serve in the army, which relies not only on conscription, but also on a deep sense of belonging and of a shared ethos. The impact is particularly severe on those serving in the reserves, the Miluim, especially in elite volunteer units, the Air Force, the commandos, and the military intelligence. Senior officers are struggling to navigate between the necessity to protect the IDF from the corrosive effects of the dispute, and on the other hand, their familiarity with those protesting the reforms, many of them serving in these top units. There is no doubt that significant damage has already been done, not only in terms of the readiness to volunteer, but also in terms of cohesion and mutual trust within the army teams and between them and their commanders. Furthermore, the internal struggle absorbs the attention of the government and even of the security establishment, undermining their ability to deal with the pressing security threats. Finally, there is no doubt that Israel's enemies draw encouragement from our internal rift and may even be tempted to undertake dangerous actions as a result. Then there is the damage to relations with the USA and to our international standing. The world is following very closely the events here, and the reaction is puzzlement and deep concern from heads of state, from commentators, from the international media. See, for example, the cover page of the last issue of The Economist with the broken Star of David. What is of utmost concern for us is the deterioration in the special relationship with the United States, based not only on interest, but mainly on shared values. We heard the President of the United States himself, according to the press release that came after his phone conversation with our Prime Minister, saying, essentially, beware. This is very alarming. We need more than ever the strong support of the United States to confront Iran and to expand the Abraham Accords, that is a central goal of the policies of this government. Now to the economic fallout. Today, the chief economist of the Ministry of Finance issued a report detailing the damages that pursuing the reform will inflict to the economy. It's not longer other economists, it's the Ministry of Finance. The bottom line is bad enough. The growth of GDP per capita will be cut by half over the next few years, which means a blow to our standard of living as a consequence of the reform. I will not elaborate on the reasons, but the sudden collapse of SVB Bank illustrates the fragility of the global economy and the fateful consequences when trust, when confidence is undermined. The high-tech sector in Israel is particularly sensitive to these risks because it's export-oriented and it relies on the continuous flow of venture capital from abroad. Pursuing the reform has increased political instability and economic uncertainty in Israel, harming the confidence of investors and therefore their willingness to invest here. If the legislation continues, Israel credit rating is very likely to go down with dire consequences for the economy. Above all, it will be very difficult to restore the damage to Israel's image as a country associated with great economic success, which was built over decades of responsible economic policy, regime stability, and yes, an independent and reliable judiciary. Finally, let me say a few words about what has been happening in the last few days, and I say this on my own behalf, not necessarily on behalf of the INSS. The question today is no longer what the fine print is in this or that bill, and therefore any cosmetic change is irrelevant. The important question, certainly from the point of view of national security, is what can stop the fracture, the escalating conflict within us. The answer, for me at least, is clear. Only a total halting of the entire package, and at the same time setting a broad framework for a real discussion on the fundamental issues of the constitutional regime in Israel, only that will bring perhaps an end to this situation. Only this can lead not only to a temporary ceasefire, but to instill hope that it may be possible to restore the fabric of Israeli society, that it will be possible to continue nourishing the extraordinary enterprise that was built up here for 75 years and that is currently in danger. The question is, do we have the inner strength and the sense of historical responsibility to do so? I believe so. Thank you.